Okay, Karthik will start then because I think Ranjit sir might be running late. So I think we'll just start. I'll just give a quick introduction for you. Hi everyone, I'm Roshni. As you've seen my previous webinars before, I was doing with Dr. Ranjith Rajeswaran from MERF. He's the chief audiologist and the principal and director of MERF, and he should be on his way for the webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about the improvement in our hearing for cochlear implants. And right here we have Karthik Nithyandham. He's a unilateral implantee and he's working for HSB Bank, and he's vice president of the financial team. Karthik, I would like you to take over and share your experience in terms of how you've come forward to this day in your hearing professionally.
Yeah, should I start, Roshni?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Karthik, and I'm currently working in HFPC as an assistant vice president for the finance division. I'll just give a brief introduction about me. I have, how do I put that? Okay. I've lost my hearing when I was around 19 years of old, when I was like right out of my university. And then for a year or so, I was like using normal hearing aid to support my hearing, but it was of not that much use. Then I moved to cochlear implanted myself in the year 2003 when I was around 22 years. I'm 39 now. I've been using the cochlear implant unilateral just by right here for almost 17 years now. The experiences using a cochlear implant has been really fantastic. It's kind of literally changed uh, my life, if you can call that. Uh, it's been 17 years, as I mentioned. So, as after my implant, I have finished my cost accountancy course and then started working. I have almost changed 4 to 5 jobs now. Uh, Currently with HSBC, like, almost have 15 years of experience in finance and banking area. And I'm married. I have 2 kids. My son is 10 years old. My daughter is 5. Uh, Life goes on okay, and happy to take up any questions as we go along. That's it, Roshni, from my side. Roshni, that's it from my side.
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying? Sorry. Yeah, Ranjit is coming. He's on his way. He just called. He's just joining in. And Karthik, I have one question for you. That is,
Yes.
when you're working and when you have this uh, communications, have you ever felt like you're losing your confidence, or have you felt like you need to want to break down or something? Because this
Uh,
is for others who are looking to join work, who are just finishing college, and they feel like they need confidence to, when they want to go for career, or those who want to go for banking. So what sort of advice would you give for them?
well, that's a good question. In terms of advice or suggestion, if I can call that, uh, you know, naturally, be open. If you ask me, be open with your challenges in your work environment, in your colleagues, or in your schools or universities, college. Tell them what challenge you have. Like, say, for example, I do small things like when I'm in my office meetings or calls, I make sure that I tell them that I have a little bit of challenge. In most cases, it is not always easier to explain. Like, for example, I manage Asia Pacific region, meaning I actually, on a day-to-day basis, I talk to all the finance colleagues across Asia Pacific region. So it might not be always possible to tell everyone that we have a challenge and in every conversation that we have. But as much as possible, try to be open, tell them that we have this challenge and they have to speak up if you're not able to hear them properly. Or a little bit small accommodations in your life, like if I'm going for office cafeteria dinner, I try to make sure that I sit to the right side because I'm inclined to the right. A small adjustment. Uh, to conclude, if you ask me, be open, tell them that you have a challenge, and honestly, if you ask me, most people are more than willing to accommodate. It's just we have to tell them what is the challenge that we face right now. And to uh, my personal advice is, for example, is don't be feel bad that you have a challenge. Try to be as competitive as possible in your work and in your work or your schools or college, whatever it may be. Uh, Personally, I feel I don't see myself as an implantee. I probably see myself as a person who has a slight hearing challenge. That's all. So you have some challenge, and I'm in no way lesser or no way uh, lower than my colleagues or anything. So I always make sure that I do a fantastic job in my career or uh, whatever organization I'm working for. I make sure that we are up to mark or up to equal to everyone there in the office environment. So be competitive in your whatever field you chose to be. Be the best you possibly can be. And yeah, really challenge, try to openly tell them. Your confidence probably comes from, uh, uh, how well you do your job. That's how I see myself. There will be challenges, of course. I'm not denying that all days will be all days will be shiny. There will be days that you will not be able to hear clearly. There will be calls, there will be meetings that you will be missing out. That's fine. If you are able to do well 90% of the time, your confidence gradually grows. Confidence is it's a matter of uh, it's a phase. If you ask me, some days you will be very well confident, some days you will not be. Learn to live with it. Make sure that you do the best you can from your side and keep moving forward, and try and take help from all the people around. If you are in your organization, tell your colleagues, your managers, anybody. If you're a school or college, tell your friends, tell your teachers that you have this challenge and you want this accommodation. uh, that's it, Roshni. I mean, it's just about doing the best you can and letting people know. That's it.
Well, those now previously you were as you told me, you had first used N5 and now you are upgraded to N6, then you upgraded to N7. So how has the improvement in your work life, your quality of hearing, everything? How is it?
Well, it's too early for me to give feedback about N7, Roshni. It's been like only a couple of weeks I've been using. But so far, so good. The only advantage I say is the mini mic that I'm having right now. It's quite useful. In terms of actual hearing, yes, there are like some differences in the quality of hearing, the quality of sound. Uh, but probably in the next seminar or next webinar, I'll probably give you more detailed feedback on how N7 is. So it's too
Yeah,
early for me to give feedback right now. Yeah.
right. So for long, I'm bilateral, and now everybody is talking about between bilateral and unilateral. What is your opinion on unilateral? Would you really go in for your second year, or you're very happy with unilateral? This is for the audience of this.
Uh, well, if you ask me, I myself am deliberately thinking whether I should go for a bilateral. But it's cost benefit. As I'm a finance person, so I normally think like that. So what's the cost? What's the benefit? If you ask me, if you're able to really manage very well with unilateral, then I don't see a point going for a bilateral. But if you're a person that you can afford a bilateral, and if you think that your current level of hearing is not that much, and if you want a better hearing, yes, of course, by all means, go for it. It depends on individual to individual, Roshni. So honestly, I have not gone for a bilateral. I'm still unilateral. and I don't think I would be able to afford for a bilateral anytime soon. I just moved for N7 now, so probably a couple of years down the line, I don't know. Maybe perhaps you can say about bilateral because you're using you're a bilateral implant.
Yeah.
You might be knowing more than me. Uh, well, for me personally, I think I'm managing okay in terms of using unilateral. I'm managing okay in the work, in family, with my kids, my wife, everything. I'm able to hear them what they speak. I'm able to participate in conversations. I'm able to uh, lead a normal life with unilateral. So I don't see a necessity for me to go for a bilateral in the near future. Perhaps sometime down the line. Let's see.
Well, for those who have just attended the webinar, today is more of a question and answer session where Dr. Ranjith will be joining us in a few minutes. So as Ranjith sir is, Mr. Karthik here is unilateral and I am bilateral. And those who are still deciding between unilateral and bilateral can post your questions in the Q&A session, and we will answer your questions. So that you'll those who are already with unilateral or planning to go for the second year can ask your questions. And good evening, Ranjit sir. Welcome on board. And we were just talking about.
Good evening, Roshni.
Good evening, sir.
Very good evening, Roshni. Tell me.
Good evening, sir.
So,
Good evening, Karthik. எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
I'm very good, sir. So glad to have you here.
Oh, very nice, very nice. It's my pleasure to be there with you guys.
So, sir, he just spoke. Karthik just shared with us his experience on unilateral, and I asked him to tell us about his challenges that he has faced in terms of work front, and I asked him to give some advice for those who are planning to go for work, and if those who are unilateral and planning to go for work after college, and what are the challenges they would have to face. So I asked him to give some advice. So we just did that, and now that you're here, it's your turn, sir.
No, first of all, I would like to thank you, Roshni, and also thank Karthik for arranging such a nice meeting. It's always a pleasure to connect to the recipients because that's the ultimate pleasure that, as a clinician, myself or Dr. Mohan sir has got. Because everything what we have been doing so far in the last 23 years is just to make the best for my patients. Because beyond the company, beyond all the recognitions, I think the best recognition is only when we meet you people, because you people are the real concern for us, and our primary concern is only you people. So it is always good to connect, and thanks for making this connection with the recipients over there. That's the most important thing in life. So now, as we discussed, I'm here for the next 45 minutes to 1 hour with you people. So if you have any specific questions that you wanted to ask me related to anything related to the cochlear implant, you may feel free to ask me, either you both, Karthik and Roshni, and also we'll be very happy to take on. So more than me saying about it, I wanted to address the questions which is of real concern to people. So maybe we'll start from now on. So you let me know, if you have any questions to ask me, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have my very first question is that so in the last few days, I've been seeing on Facebook, that now they're coming, there's news of this implantable devices coming up, I think from metal and all that. So there are a lot of these questions coming in, like if it is going to be completely implantable inside, whether we will be able to hear properly, how is this volume, like now the processor outside, there is mapping, there is programming and everything. If everything is going to be completely inside, will it be that the volume is going to be like any normal person? We won't need any mapping or anything. Can you hear normally?
Yeah, so this is a question hearing for the last 15 years because the totally implantable cochlear implant is the dream for many patients, and also it is scientific. It will be a great scientific achievement or accomplishment for many scientists like us. But there are a lot of hurdles. One, you have to understand that the biology, which is a natural way how we hear, is more complicated than what we've understood so far. This is the honest truth. If somebody says that they have understood the science of hearing very well, that means that's rubbish, which means that they haven't understood enough, because the science of hearing is more complicated than what we all think together. Now, if you have to replicate the science of hearing in a very artificial way by putting a device or a prosthesis, I think it involves a lot of work, a lot of research. It involves a lot of realistic understanding of what it is. So my opinion is this totally implantable hearing device. If you ask me, will it be possible? My answer is yes, it will be possible. If you ask me when will it be possible, my answer is not in the next 5 to 7 years down the line. If you ask me why it is not possible for the next 5 years to 6 years, is because we'll have to consider many things: the longevity of the device when you put inside, the maintenance of the device when you put inside, the quality of hearing when you put the device completely inside. So considering all these three major factors, plus other factors, which I don't want to discuss in detail because it will not be of great concern of understanding for most of the people attending here. So it is not easy to do it. But if you ask me, will it be possible to do programming? See, at the end of the day, the primary concern for a clinician like me, or for the manufacturer like Medel or any company, the reason why we mentioned Medel is recently launched or successfully did their totally implantable cochlear implant, which is of a great news, which is all over. Congratulations to them, but it is very primitive. They've also mentioned in their website that it is a very primitive or a secondary stage. It has not reached the tertiary stage where it is going to be of commercial use now, because everybody is very careful when they do it. Now, the concern for all of us is we have to give the quality hearing. Whether it is totally implantable or completely outside, we really don't bother. As long as the hearing is good, that's more important. Now, the ergonomics, the aesthetics also plays a major role. And if you put a totally implantable device, it's aesthetically better, right? Now, the question is, aesthetics is one component of using a prosthesis, but the major component, the major factor in using a prosthesis is the quality of performance. Okay, so we should never develop a technology which will perform poorer than existing technology. For example, you have a lot of processors available today, and tomorrow I come up with totally implantable device, but the quality of the performance of the device is going to be poorer than the existing device, which is not acceptable, right? At the end of the day, the quality is more important than the aesthetics, right? So this is where the lot of science, a lot of research, and a lot of clinical trials, the data is going to play a major role. So considering all those things, I foresee this is not going to be on a commercial market for at least for the next 5 years, right? If you ask me, do you need to do programming? Yes, we may need to do programming. If you ask me, how will you do programming in totally implantable device? The technology will have its own way to program it. You can do a wireless programming on that. It is all possible. We'll have to wait and see how it's going to shape up. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes.
Sir, in our previous webinars, we spoke about the cochlear implants in general. We talked about cochlear, metal, and advanced bionics, all in general in terms of maintenance and how we are hearing and everything. Today, I need you to tell us how there's going to be improvement in our hearing with cochlear implants.
Well, cochlear implant is primarily, as most of you know, it is a device that's going to restore hearing sensation. So it is not the device that is going to download the dictionary, or it is not the device that's going to download the world of sound, or the sound of music, or whatever you call it. I mean, it's not going to restore the natural. So to understand your question very precisely, you're asking me how best you can make use of the implant. Is that right? Is that what you wanted to ask me?
Uh,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the core concept of your question. Can you explain your question once again?
so far, we are. I have been visiting MERF in so many days. I have looked at my right side. My right side there's been a lot of improvement, and I'm looking at the. You have taught me how to look at the quality of sound in terms of my hearing, in terms of hearing my own voice. So so how long is it going to take more for this quality?
It's a good question. It's a good question. See, Roshni, what is more important is not giving hearing. Giving hearing is very easy. Sorry, we all know that. But that is maintaining, that is replicating the naturalness of sound quality is very important. And that's a little complicated. That involves a very high level of precise programming of the device. So to program the device, we need a lot of data. For example, even in your own case, you know how many different types of tests we did it on you to give you a good, right, to optimize it. So you've been using the device for the last 5 years, at least. And you had a good hearing before you got an implant, and gradually your hearing dropped, and eventually you came when you used a hearing aid, and eventually you ended up in cochlear implant when your hearing aids were not beneficial to you. So which means your brain has a good memory of how the natural sound sounds like, right? Now, when I put an implant, your expectations are different. Your expectations is you always wanted the quality of sound with an implant as good as how you were been hearing with your natural hearing. Right. Now, to meet that expectations, if you ask me, is it possible? It is possible, but is it achievable? It is definitely achievable. But is it possible to do it just by 1 or 2 regular mapping? No, that is not possible. So every cochlea, every inner ear is different. Okay, the anatomy, the microphysiology of every ear is different. First, we have to understand the microanatomy of your ear, which is for example, the microanatomy of Roshni, even in your case, the right cochlea is different from your left cochlea. We all know that, right? So what we are now doing is we are trying to customize the implant and the programming to give you the maximum benefit, okay, with respect to the anatomy and functioning of that particular cochlea. Okay, so that is how it has to be done. So one size doesn't fit to everybody. We have to customize things. When we start customizing, the quality improves. Right? It is a learning curve. It is definitely a learning curve. If you ask me, did you have this knowledge 10 years ago? I did not have this knowledge 10 years or 15 years ago. But now with constant research that has been happening in the institute, constantly monitoring the people, constantly publishing work, we have understood what we need to do if we have to improve the quality. Right. Now the quantity is different. So if you ask if I can do a map where I can even make you hear the softest sound, right? But it does not mean the quality is restored. So now we are more in MERF, we are more concerned about the quality rather than the quantity. See, quantity is very easy to achieve. I really know in 5 minutes I can make a person hear even the softest sound with an implant. But to restore the quality is something really challenging. And that's what we are working. And when you came to MERF, when you wanted to improve the quality of sound, you've been here with us for the last few months. And we must have done at least 25 different types of tests on you, right? So to understand, and eventually we created a map based on those results what we have got. And you told me that the quality of sound is much better with this new map with all these measurements compared to your earlier maps which you've been using for the last 4.5 years.
Yes.
So this is very important. That the science of programming is an art. It's a programming mapping is an art of science, and which evolves. And if you 10 years down the line or 5 years later, we would have evolved in a different level where we can even program the patients much better than what we've been doing today. Okay, so it's an ongoing process. So in the ongoing process, we have learned many things based on scientific work, and that's exactly what we want to give it to the patients as
Uh, Sir,
well. So
can I ask
did I
a
answer the
question?
question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I mean, and thanks for your answers in terms of the new technology, totally implantable device. It was very, very useful to learn about that. And I'm hopefully in the next few years, that is just mentioned, 5 years, 7 years down the line, we have this device coming in. It will be helpful for people like us or most of the cochlear implantees right now. That's very useful. And the second question that Roshni spoke about in terms of hearing, the quality of hearing. But I would want to slightly deviate from the topic and ask in terms of, in the speech clarity, not the hearing clarity. Because, most of the time we implantees get struck to, how I can hear better, what sound to hear, but I'm able to hear even a tiny pin drop. Honestly, if you ask me, I'm not too concerned about how if I'm able to hear every sound. But in terms of as a chief audiologist with your experience working with multiple implantees over the years, so can you hear me okay, right?
Very well.
So yeah, what do you suggest the implantees should focus in terms of improving their speech? What are the steps that they need to focus? Because I would be mostly interested in terms of having a good conversation with my colleagues or my friends, with any of them. I'm not too focused on whether I'm able to hear a tiny sound. How to have a good conversation, how I can improve my speech quality. What do you think, based from your experience, you can guide us or give suggestions?
Karthik, it's a very, very interesting question from your side. I know this question comes out of your own experience, right? So the key point that we have to understand is, for good quality of speech, you need to have good quality of hearing. Somebody with poor quality of hearing will always produce a poor quality of speech. Speech is directly a byproduct of quality of hearing. Now, even if you take somebody who has not received a cochlear implant, they have good hearing in low frequency, but they have very poor hearing in high frequency, their speech is affected. So speech reflects the quality of hearing. The most important thing, if you really want to improve the quality of speech, then you need to improve the quality of hearing. That is point number one. The point number two, after improving the quality of hearing, we need to support the patient, to help the patient, to assist the patient or assist the brain and the system involved in producing speech. The speech production mechanism in the brain is different from the speech perception mechanism. Speech perception is understanding. Speech production is speaking. The mechanism in the brain for producing the speech, that is speaking, is different from the mechanism which is perceiving. But the production of speech has got lot of dependence on the perception of speech.
Okay, basically understanding speech, right?
Basically perceiving. See, that's again important thing. To understand the speech depends upon the quality of hearing. Everything boils down to the quality of hearing. Right. Now, the quality of hearing is of two aspects. The aspect number one, the quality depends upon how many neurons in the brain is involved in perception of speech. The more the neurons, better the quality, which is absolutely out of our control. It is not in my control or nor it is in your control. Okay. But what is in our control, the second point which helps the quality of speech is the way how you do programming. Programming means mapping, the way how you do mapping. Right. Now that is another two factors. One is the number of neurons that is involved in perception of sound. Number two, the quality of the signal that you map. That is important. Now that is in our hand. The second thing is not in our hand. Nobody's hand. Right. So sooner it will also come to our hand, but the research is going in the direction. But I don't have anything convincing to express at the moment on that particular point. But definitely, when it comes to mapping, yes, we can improve the quality. This is important. But mapping is not just when you come into the clinic, you just connect the processor to this your system and say whether you hear, you don't hear, or whether the sound is comfortable or not comfortable or soft. No, it's not that. It's more than that, right? There are a lot of parameters. There are at least some 25 different of parameters that you need to manipulate in your mapping. But 99.9% of the time, whoever is doing the mapping, they only play with 2 parameters or 3 parameters. Remaining 20 parameters, I'm just giving an analogy. Okay, this is not the exact figure. So is not being manipulated, right? Now the point is, the reason why it is not manipulated is, you need to have a lot of information, data to know what to manipulate, right? See, that is why now we are all interested in optimizing, maximizing the benefit. That is optimizing the mapping for every cochlea. See, initially they said you need to do mapping for everybody. Then it came, you need to customize the mapping for each person. Now we are looking at, you have to customize the map for each cochlea, right? Each year. Okay. So the more the evidence, the more the science advancing, more precise we go into it.
That's interesting, sir. Wow. Yeah.
Now, I'll give you a very simple example with Roshni herself. So when Roshni received her implant 5 years ago, okay, even I only did mapping for her. Now, and my colleagues also followed up, and they also did a lot of mapping more than me for Roshni. But now the way I do the mapping for her is totally different from the way I do 5 years ago. Right. So which means what, the science is advanced and you are keeping in pace with the science. You are keeping in pace with the development. Right. When you keep pace with the development, that is where you need to transform the technology and the science and the development to reality. That is, you have to make it clinically possible so the patient really feels, yes, there is a difference. What is the point in just scientifically writing thousands and thousands of papers and these things when it is not made reality to patient? So my job is to make things, the science to reality to patients. That's the focus. And that is why we called up, we work with Roshni and also many other. Roshni is one example, many others as well, to see how we can optimize the map even after 5 years of 10 years of implantation to maximize the benefit for them. So that is the most important thing. So to answer your question, the quality of hearing is the first concern for good quality of speech production.
Speech. Okay. Fantastic.
The important part of the answer is, even if after giving the good quality of hearing, then the patient has to undergo a good training, a focused, precise training to address his own needs in speech correction. Right.
Yes.
So when you focus on that, then they automatically start improving, the speech quality improves.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I will just slightly add up to the second point that you mentioned. In terms of, we all agreed that the quality of hearing should be, that's the main criteria for quality of speech. Totally understand. Having said that, so once we have set some basic mapping based on the individual's needs. And then from the individual perspective, from the implantee perspective, when it comes to the second point, like how do I maximize uh, the benefit or maximize the help that the clinic is giving me. See, you have done the best mapping for me. You have done all you could do. Once I did all you could do. From my side, what I should be doing to ensure that I speak well, I hear well, what are the efforts that I need to do. Like in terms, I personally do it, sir. Like I try to speak and record my speech and try to listen to that. Steps like that. I sometimes do that. So what other patients can do from their end? Like as I just mentioned, a lot of training should be there. So anything else the kids or parents can do to better improve that?
Of course, they can do a lot of things. They can do a lot of things because now what is more important is there are two groups of patients we have. One group of patients are children, another group of patients are adults. Adults are people like you who are postlingual. Now, what you can do for prelinguals is different. Prelingual means I mean children. Okay, yeah. What you can do for postlinguals, adults are totally different. The management, the treatment, or the technique that we use to improve the speech perception and the speech production is totally different from children and adult. Now, I will focus on adult at the moment. For the adults, what you need to do is you need to train them on listening. So what we usually do is, now we give lot of tasks to our patients, right? These tasks will help the patient to understand the different aspects or depth of sound that they hear in everyday life. So we give them, we have a module, we give the module where the parents and Karthik, if you excuse me, I'll just pick this call. This is a very emergency call
Yeah,
from
yes.
a patient. I'll just give me a second,
Sure,
pardon me.
Sure, sure. Can
sure. Definitely, sir.
தேவைப்பட்டா மட்டும் just put a ketone injection.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm very sorry.
That's okay, sir.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Very sorry. So
just be mindful of your time. If you have to have other commitments, or if you have to go, please feel free to stop me. I'll probably stop.
no problem. In case if there is an emergency, then I'll have to excuse me. But otherwise, I'm okay to talk to. So what we were discussing about speech production, right?
Yep.
So when it comes to adults, mostly, we give a lot of exercises for them. And we take feedback from the exercises, and based on the feedbacks, we try to reprogram them. Okay. Now, the exercises what we give itself will help them to listen better. So now what we have done is we have developed a new module which will help the patients to listen better. This is a module which is where the patients can train themselves. This is a new module. And of course, I think I've told Roshni to get one, and maybe Karthik or somebody, a lot of people coming and taking the module. That's a module that we have developed with a new software system. So which will help them to listen better, and eventually which will also help them to produce speech better. So that is one way. So what we are doing is, so that's most important, Karthik. The thing is, what I have been doing 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that's not what I'm doing now. Because when I mean it's not me alone. I'm not trying to say promote myself here. That's not the point here. So I'm trying to say, in most of the developed institutions all over the world, that's what they do. They try to update and give the best to the people at one go. So my advice is, never my advice to the patients is, never stay lethargic and never stay so over-satisfied, right? There is always something better we can do. Just close your eyes, introspectively think, what are things that you're missing even with the implant? There are a lot of things that you'll be missing with implant, because I promote implant for the simple reason that I want people to hear better. But at the same time, I'm a great critic of implant, because the quality of the sound that you hear with the cochlear implant is definitely much way inferior to the quality of sound that you hear with your normal hearing. Right? The technology has not reached the level where the cochlear implant can replace normal hearing. Right? But at the same time, there are many ways that even with the existing implant, you can go much closer to the normal hearing, which not many people knew in the beginning. So my advice is, I know that a lot of implantees, even using implants for 10 years, 15 years, or 5 years, may still face some problem. Even in your own case, Karthik, you may still have some difficulty with an implant when you've been using.
Of course, I do, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because you've been using the device since 2004, if I'm not wrong. November, you got an input.
Absolutely. It's been 17 years almost now. Yeah, correct.
So November, if I'm not wrong, your implant was November 12th or 14th or something like that.
Exactly, sir. You're never wrong in this. You always remember it on fingertip like that. I know.
So,
correct.
So you've been using it, but even now you might be facing some difficulties with the implant. You are an
experienced. Yes, sir, I do.
Implant. So that's what you need to come to the clinic again and say what your problems are. Because 15 years ago, the technology what we had was different. But now if you say this is the problem, we may have a better solution for you, where we can resolve your problem. So keeping in touch with the clinic is very, very important. Is very important, because as the science is improving, the skill is improving, the clinics will have much better solutions when you come.
Absolutely. It's a very, very good point that I mentioned, which I personally am not, honestly speaking, I'm not doing it. But it's just a good point for me as well as other implantees as well. We have to keep in touch with the clinic. Clinic, as you guys are like, you're pioneers in the field. You have up to date with the latest technologies. So it is for our benefit and the implantees' benefit to ensure that we always keep in touch with the clinic and our audiologists and the doctors. So just a point for the other participants as well. It's a very good point that Ranjith mentioned here. So please ensure that we always be in touch with the clinic. Well, the same topics, I just want to ask you in terms of awareness. Let's say, for example, if I'm going for N5 to N7, or because there are like so many models out there, so many uh, implant implant companies are there. What do you suggest for the participants like us if I'm going for an upgrade or if I'm considering an implant? What are the things that I need to do? How do, in terms of just general awareness concept, what do I think?
That's another interesting question. A lot of people call me for this upgrades. My answer is I will tell before I make this comment, but I want to insist on one thing which is related to previous questions. What I'm trying to tell you is, with related to previous question, is the changes are constant. Okay, so never feel satisfied with what you're hearing. You should never feel satisfied with what you're hearing. You should always ask more. You should always ask more. I want more. I want more. I want more. The more you ask, the more we give. The more you demand, more we start thinking in a different perspective, right? So I'm not an implant, right? I'm not an implantee. I can't judge. You people are implantees. You are using implants. If you come and tell me, Ranjith, I have this problem. I'm still not happy. I want this. Then I will start seriously looking into how to give the best thing. So one line answer is never be satisfied with what you are hearing. Yes, be satisfied with what you are, but always ask more. I'm not saying, I would rephrase it. You be satisfied with what you're having, but always ask for something more. Keep constantly asking me. So something or other we will give it to you. Okay, that's one. Coming back to your next question is regarding upgrade. So with respect to the upgrade is, well, upgrade is important only if there is a necessity. Upgrade is not important when there is no necessity, right? Now, for example, if I can do something with, for example, let's take Karthik in your own case. Okay, that's just a hypothetical example. You're using a CP802 processor, assumption. Okay, now you have a specific problem with that in terms of hearing. You have a specific issue in hearing some sound. You come to me, I sort out that issue, and you're happy with it. All right. Then you're comfortable going. Okay.
Yep.
Then the question is, why do you need an upgrade? Why do you need an upgrade is a question. Now, the next is, yes, I give another new processor to you. And you're very much satisfied with the new processor because it is adding quality, substantial quality to your hearing compared to
The previous one, yeah.
then you need to go for an upgrade. If it is not adding a quality, substantial quality to you, there is no point in upgrading your device because you already, if the benefit is the same, then there is no need to upgrade. If the new technology is adding more benefit, yes, it happens. It makes a difference, right? So my advice to everybody is, if you want an upgrade, okay, you need to approach the clinic. The clinic has to perform a lot of tests on you first with the existing thing. They would like to ask a question, what are your problem, and try to manipulate all the parameters in the map and give you the best map. And then we will try the new device. And with that, if the new device is making a lot of difference, quantitatively, if we can measure the difference, then yes, going for an upgrade is really good because the technology which is coming now and in the future, of course, the company also developed a technology to make things better for the patients. They also consider about their patients. There's no doubt about it. But don't blindly go in for an upgrade, just like upgrading your iPhone 8 to iPhone 10 to iPhone 11. No, that's different. So in general, a lot of people have a concept of upgrading is a status symbol. No, don't do that. Don't do that. My advice is don't do that. See how much of quality that adds to you. And every technology is as good as a clinician who is working with the technology. Every technology comes in your hand is as good as the audiologist who's manipulating the technology to give you the maximum benefit. Let me put it in a very simple term for you to understand. You may have an iPhone 5 or an iPhone 11. or you may be having in the future, you may have an iPhone 20 or whatever it is, right? Unless you don't know what to look into it, how to use the iPhone 11 compared to iPhone 5, what is the point in having an iPhone 5 or iPhone 11? If you're just going to pick up the call and answering yes, no, and whatever it is, why do you need an iPhone 11 for that?
Exactly. Yes.
So that's the very similar thing that you need to look in when you have to look at the upgrades as well. Right? Because don't forget, because my intention is not to give upgrades alone to you. My intention is to take care of you holistically. Because my interest is in making you hear throughout your life. Right? As somebody who's selling a product, not necessarily a cochlear implant, or any product for that matter, his interest is just to sell things. But my interest to you is to make sure that I sustain your hearing and give quality of hearing throughout the lifetime. Because I am only bonded to you. I am not bonded to any product or any company or anybody for that matter. So I am a scientist, so I will only look at how best I can optimize the science to make you the best, irrespective of whatever speech processor you are using. Now, Karthik, you may have some money to upgrade, but not necessarily everybody should have that money to upgrade, right? There are a lot of people who don't have money to upgrade. So my advice to them,
Very expensive, yeah.
Don't feel bad just because you can't upgrade, because upgrade is just a mental thing. It's just a mental thing. I want to upgrade, I will hear. I want to upgrade, I will hear. No, that's not the point. The point is, even if you get the best processor, if it is not programmed well, there's no point in having it, right? So there will always be a difference in the terms of the sound perception between two different devices. But the question here is, the perception of the sound that you get from the new device, how different and how quantitatively it is different. எந்த அளவுக்கு அதிகபட்ச வித்தியாசம் உங்களுக்கு கொடுக்குது, அதை வச்சு என்ன பண்ண முடியும்ன்றது தான் முக்கியம்.
Correct.
Yeah. So if you ask me, should I have to go for an upgrade? I would advise you, first you try the upgrade, the processor.
As a trial.
Scientifically, we will evaluate it whether it is making a significant difference to you. If it is, then you upgrade it. If it is not, then you have to take the call whether you want to buy it or not. This will be my sincere advice to everybody. And even if I have my own sister, son who needs an upgrade, I will advise the same thing. There's no difference in terms of that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a very useful, eye-opening point that you mentioned right now. And I think the participants would probably be taking note of this point as well. So it's a very good point. I don't have nothing much to ask, sir. So probably you have been conscious of your time as well. So,
no, it's okay. I just was waiting for this call. I finished this call. I mean, I have some more time. So if you have any more questions, or if Roshni has any more questions, or any of the participants have a question, they're free. Let them feel free to ask me, or maybe you can take the questions and ask me. No problem.
Sir, I have one question. That is, you have explained about the perception of speech, the perception of sound. Now, most of the time when we do the mapping, you say, okay, you play some music and see if you're hearing the speech or something like that. How do I look at how I'm hearing the speech clearly? Because there is no conversation when I am listening to music. But I find that when I have a conversation with someone, then I'm able to see the perception of speech there, because then the speech there is very, very clear when I'm speaking in person. So what is the expectation that you need from us when we have to listen to music?
Okay, the answer to this question is very, very simple, Roshni. The answer to the question is the speech is totally different from music. The music is different from speech, right? I think I switched off my camera. Hold on. Yeah, the music is different from speech. Okay, speech is. Let me put it in a very simple term for you people to understand. Speech is an ongoing, fast change in the sound, that is speech, right? And background noise is ongoing, but there is no rapid change in the quality of the sound and the quantity of the sound. Now, if you run a generator, the generator will produce a noise for a longer time as long as it is running. But there's no change in the quality of the sound of the generator. It is the same, even if the generator is running for 1 hour or 10 minutes, the sound quality is the same. It is the same sound, there's no difference. But speech is not like that. Every millisecond there is a change. Every microsecond there is a change. Right? There is a rapid change in the sound quality of speech. And that's what makes speech very unique. If that rapid change in the sound quality is not happening, then speech becomes dull. It's monotone. It is not speech. It is just any other noise. Right? Now, this is the difference between a noise and the speech. And this really puts a lot of challenge for cochlear implanting. Because one of the important limitation of the cochlear implant is you can code the loudness of the sound very well. But you cannot code the change of sound in every microsecond in a cochlear implant. It is not possible. The cochlear implant system is not that sophisticated yet to do it. And especially because of the electrical stimuli, the implant delivers electrical stimuli. But on the contrary, if you want to deliver a light, you can give the preciseness. But if you're delivering electrical signal, you can't maintain the preciseness. I mean, this is too much of physics into it. I will not go into it, but I'm just trying to give you the abstract of the physics, what the concept of it. So the problem here is the temporal aspect. It is scientifically, it's called the temporal. Temporal means change of sound not over a period, every point of time. That is temporal, right? Now, music is highly temporal. Music is much more complicated than speech. Because why? Because music is not one sound. Music is multiple instruments. Okay. And you know the difference between music and noise? Noise is, and music is rhythmic noise. Noise is arrhythmic music. Understand? So that's the beauty. So the cochlear implant is not efficient enough to code that information. All right. Now, that is why, Roshni, when you listen to music, you always have more problem compared to listening to speech. Okay, I'll give you another situation for you. Have you ever tried speaking to people in a noisy environment? You must have tried, right?
Yes,
you
sir.
must. Now, compare your own perception speaking to somebody in a quiet environment, in a very quiet room, like where I'm sitting, and in a noisy auditorium or a noisy restaurant when you're trying to understand somebody's speech. There is a difference, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the point is, the more the sound goes into the processor of the cochlear implant device, the more precise it has to process, but the system is not so sophisticated to do so, at least now. So perceiving music is much more complex than perceiving speech in noise, and perceiving speech in noise is much more complex than perceiving speech in a quiet environment. Okay, this does not apply only to cochlear implant. This also applies to normal hearing people, right? So there is so much of neurons, there's so much of activity is involved when you have to perceive speech in noise, or when you have to perceive music, or if you have to really focus on the lyrics of the song in the background music. So that is challenging. Okay. So that is all those tests what we have done to you, like in a harmonic test and disharmonic test. All those things indirectly and directly measures the perception of your hearing in a different environment. So only based on those values we changed your programming, which really gave you told that it was really wonderful to have this program, because you hear a lot of new sounds which you weren't hearing for the last 4.5 years. So that is the point. So that's the difference between perception of music and perception of speech, and perception of speech in noise.
Sir, I have just one question. It might not be just for the hearing, but it is in general. Many parents are also asking for, they want to know all about CP802 and want to know what it is, whether it is better for, in comparison with freedom, in comparison with N6 and all. They're all asking, what is CP802?
Okay, I will not go in detail with respect to the technological specifications because they may not understand. But I'll classify into two groups. The group one is the technology with what do you call it as uh, precise sound processing, okay, and a technology which is with precise sound processing with some additional support. Okay, now honestly tell me, what is the difference? Because Roshni, you've been using 3 generations of processors now. You had CP910, you had Nucleus 7, you also have Kenzo, right? Now, what is more important compared to your previous processor and the new processors? Aesthetically, forget about the aesthetics. Aesthetics in the terms, forget about the design, whether it is BT or optical. Forget about that. Okay. Technically, technologically, or perceptually, the only difference is there is something called the assistive listening solutions. Okay. Hearing is different from listening. But to listen better, you need to have hearing. Now, there is only so much that you can improve in the quantity and the quality of hearing with cochlear implant. Beyond which, as of now, we couldn't cross that border. But in the future, we may. That's a different story. Okay. But what we can do is, what is more important is not hearing. What is more important is how good you're listening to it, how easily you're listening to it. The ease of listening is very important. Okay. I can listen to a speech very comfortably for 2 hours without much of a strain. On the contrary, I can also listen to some speech only for 5 minutes, beyond which I couldn't sustain my attention. Right. Now, the simple example for many people to understand is, it is talking to somebody in a marriage hall. Okay, when you want to talk to your relative in a wedding hall where all the drums and the other music is being played, so much of noise or background noise is there, you tend to raise your voice, okay, and speak, and then what eventually happens, you don't understand them properly, so you go very close to them, okay, you ask for repetitions, and what happens naturally, the amount of time that you speak, the information that you speak in a noisy environment becomes less, because you can't listen, you're so tired of listening to it. But if you're meeting the same person in a quiet environment, you may speak for 30 minutes. But when you're meeting the same person in a wedding hall or in a very noisy environment, you will not speak, you will only first speak for 5 minutes, beyond which you will say, you yourself will, you won't proceed with the conversation. So the point is, what technology we have at the moment to make the children understand at ease, that is what is important. Now, all the upgrades, all the new technologies are focusing on assistive listening solution. That is, the solutions that assist in listening. It doesn't help you to listen directly, it assists you in listening. Now, one such technology is what Karthik is wearing, the phone clip. Okay, the mini mic helps you to understand speech in a from a longer distance, much easily. All right. The phone clip helps you to understand the phone conversation much better. Okay.
Yeah.
So likewise, the TV streaming helps you to understand the conversation on the television much better. So these are called the assistive listening devices. This has got nothing to do with your internal device. Internal devices are same. There's no difference at all. Okay, nothing. It's only assisting it. Now, if you ask me that, is it, there are also other alternate ways that you can do it. I don't endorse any company. I don't endorse Cochlear. I don't endorse Medal, nor I don't endorse Advanced Bionic or any company. My only endorsement is just people and patients. So if someone cannot afford this is the answer which I'm giving to somebody who can't afford to go for an upgrade. But you still wanted to use those facilities, you can still use it. You can still use it. Just buying it from the external market. It is available, right? You can buy an assistive listening device from the local market, okay? And you can pair it with your existing processor. That is possible. That is definitely possible. Now, the question is how to do it, what device you need to take it, then you approach your clinic, they will be able to help you on that. So just upgrading is a very good option, but for people, those who can't upgrade, you still have the solution. There is no solution for that. The solution is always there, right? But you don't know. Just because you don't know does not mean it doesn't exist. There's a very famous saying in English, ignorance is a bliss. Right. So just because you don't know does not mean that it is not available. Okay. So we have given it to many of our patients. A lot of patients come to us, and we know that these assistive listening technology will definitely help the child to understand speech in the classroom. So we have been providing it much before this latest processor has been launched. We have been providing assistive listening devices 10 years ago where this Bluetooth was not available. They're doing very happy, very comfortable with it. So my point is very simple. I'm again reiterating this point. You tell us your problem. To give solution is our problem. We will take care of that. But solutions are available irrespective of whatever is your socioeconomic status. Because as a scientist, my job is to give solution, and my job is not to give solution to rich people. Rich people only. My job is to give solution for people irrespective of their socioeconomic status. Whatever is their affordability, then we'll try to optimize the solution for them. So that is exactly what is important. So Michael, I think just ask your clinic what you want. If you can't afford it, fine, don't worry about it. Please don't worry about it. Absolutely don't worry about it. The best example is Karthik, he himself. He got his processor upgraded just a month or 6 months, a few months ago. But before that, he was 3 months ago. Before that, he was using the old generation processor. I know from 2004 to 2012 or 14, he is using the Sprint processor. For almost 6-7 years, he was using the Sprint processor. He is doing very well. Nothing wrong in that. He is doing well. And the point is like, upgradation is sophistication. The sophistication gives you comfort. It gives you comfort. You have to understand that. I'm not saying sophistication, upgradation doesn't give you anything. It gives you a lot of comfort, ease. But if you can't afford that, but there's also other ways of doing it. Right. Now, for example, if you want a comfort like an Audi car, but you don't have the money to buy an Audi car or Benz car, but you can alter something in your existing Maruti car to give the same kind of comfort. It is possible to do it. Right? Certain features we can do it. So that is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. But there are certain features which is definitely not possible with the external gadgets. You can only get it when you buy the company product, like an upgrade. For example, now they've come up with the Bluetooth technology, which can pair your device with the phone, and you can manipulate a lot of things using your phone. And those things are something which is not possible. You can't buy it from the open market. That is not possible to do it. But assistive listening solution is possible. But giving the user friendliness is not possible. The user friendliness is possible only with the company's own generation devices, the processors or the upgrades they give you. But the assistive listening is possible.
Actually, you have articulated this answer very well, honestly. because earlier Roshni asked me that what is the difference that I see from N5 to N7. I was like saying in terms of hearing, as I just mentioned, it's not a drastic difference in terms of hearing, but the difference is mainly on the assisted technology that you mentioned just right now. Like, for example, this phone clip or the pairing facility that we have in the phone, stuff like that. Uh, I was not able to articulate this point, but you actually very well articulated this point like this. So thank you for that. Because that's one of the main reason I went for this, because in my office environment, I have to use a lot of phones. Earlier, I used to have this headphones and try and speak. Most times, I used to get fatigued by end of a call. But this phone clip is actually helping a lot. So the assisted technology, yes, is very, very useful. As just mentioned, whether you can go as an upgrade or we could go as an external source of either way. So that's a very good point, sir. So most of the benefits is not really in terms of hearing, honestly, right? Not the drastic hearing. It's just the technologies that come up, like assisted devices like this.
Correct.
Basically.
Correct. Very true. Because that's what we can do now. The real quality of hearing, just without the assistive listening devices, the science has not progressed yet. So there are some technological or philosophical, scientific philosophical differences between the companies which give some quality. But apart from that, there's nothing great about it. So my point is, for example, Karthik, if you're coming to me and you say that, Ranjith, I don't have the money to go for an N7 or something, but I want to, these are the problems that I face. I have a problem in attending a Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting. I have a problem listening to people in a group conversation. I would have given you other alternative solution. That is, which will also help you without going for another. That is also possible to do it. I would have given you. Yes, so that's the point. When I quote you, Karthik, I'm just giving an example for others. Doesn't mean that I'm targeting you. Okay, so that is possible. That's definitely possible to do it. So what I'm trying to tell is, if somebody who's like Karthik or Roshni, who has some other problem, and you don't have the money to go for an upgrade, never mind. Just tell us what you want. We will find other solutions to help you. Solutions are always available. But the point, what I'm trying to tell Karthik here, the patient should also be intelligent enough to identify their problem. If they don't identify their problem, they will never get the solution, because unless you identify what your problems are, you will not be able to tell me your problems. So I will not be able to figure out the solution. So you should be smart enough to identify your problem. That's my point.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I think most implantees should actually, the best thing is to approach the clinic, tell your problems, and the clinic would be able to suggest the best solution for the problem. Right? So
correct.
Yeah.
So that's more important. Just don't go for, my point is, just don't go for blindly buying. Buying is, you have money, you can buy it, but unless you know how to make use of what you've got, it doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
You're right, sir. But sir, when I'm also using N7 also, and especially when I'm looking at the sound, and now the new technology is that there is direct pairing also with the iPhone. And when I'm using this, speaking and keeping the phone like this also, sometimes I keep the phone down and I'm speaking. But sometimes, there is background noise also in the background during the call. So when there is a background noise, sometimes I feel like I'm speaking loudly, or I feel like my voice modulation is very loud, or like that. I feel like
that's quite natural. That's quite natural, Roshni, because even if you look at the so-called normal hearing people like me, when there is a background noise, naturally we tend to speak loud. So this is a natural thing. So that means there's no problem, no worries. So we have been keep on talking about this, the device, the upgrades, and we have been always telling Cochlear company. No, because both of you are using Cochlear company, we are referring to the Cochlear company quite often. But it is the same situation with the rest of the other companies as well. For if there are any participants
What would you
using,
say to the somebody who is still struggling but still feeling afraid to come and to talk on the phone or to come forward and have like a big part in group discussions, step out? They all are feeling afraid. They all want to uh, depend on their families to communicate for them. They're not feeling confident to come out. They're not having that thing. How do we convince them?
no, you don't need to,
Some sort of advice.
you don't need to convince me, Roshni. See, I'll tell you what. It is a very sad state of affair that, to not to contact the clinics quite often. That is not good. Because my role is only to work to improve the quality of hearing for patients with cochlear, on which I have been working. And when I mean people like me in different places also, right? I've been working on it. Many other good audiologists all over the world are also working the same thing. So we've been working for 22 years, 23, 25 years now. So we have seen how things have evolved, how things have changed. So we have a solution for it. I mean, at least whatever is the latest solution we have. But the problem is we don't have the time to contact all the patient every month. That is not possible for us. It is the patient who has to, okay, make it a point, okay, let's visit the clinic once in 3 months or once in 6 months, okay, and just evaluate what is happening for them. That is very, very important that they should do. Every 6 months or every 3 months or something, just come for half a day, just 2 hours or so. Just come evaluate your own self, your device, because you are happy with whatever you are having, not because you're getting everything. Understand, this is a very important point. You're not happy with because you're getting everything. You're happy with whatever is happening to you. But when there is an opportunity to get more, why can't you avail it is my thing. So that's why I always keep this, make this statement is never be satisfied with what you're having, right? Always ask for more. So when I mean satisfied, what I mean is, I'm not saying don't be dissatisfied all the time. That's not what I'm trying to tell. I'm not saying be dissatisfied. I'm only telling you can be satisfied with what you're having, but you always ask for something more, right? That solution the clinic will have for you, but for which you will have to come. Let me take your own example. So you came a few months ago and you said you have this. So we worked in detail with you. We solved the problem, right? So that's the point. So we are very happy to solve your problem. And that's my passion. That's passion for people like me. But you will have to come and tell me what your problems are. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell you. When you tell your problem, then our brain completely goes in deep to find solution for you.
I agree with you, sir. Actually, if you ask me, my thought would be like, I'm hearing okay, everything is going on smoothly. As you said, I'm just satisfied. So what is the need for me to go? Was the initial thought for me or any other patient? The kid is hearing well. He is managing fine. So what is the need for us to go? Unless something, maybe the hair implant stops working or something like that, then we approach the clinic. But that should not be the case, as I just mentioned. Every 6 months, we should go and, even if it is working fine, we should not be satisfied. We have to go and talk to the clinician, tell them, as you just mentioned, there might be any new technology that have come up, any new things that have come up, which you could probably benefit, utilize that once you come visit the clinic, right?
No, you're right, Karthik. Not necessarily that every new thing you need to buy it. Every new information that even the clinician gains from his experience, he will be able to change in the way he maps and make you better. Not necessarily have to buy things for everything. That's true.
Correct, absolutely.
But despite having discussed all these things in hearing, basically you need to make very clear for all of us is the difference between bilateral and unilateral, sir.
Yes. The difference between bilateral and unilateral. Now, it is very simple. Naturally, we hear with 2 ears. You need to understand why we have 2 ears. When we know why we have 2 ears, then you will understand why 2 ears are important. Now, hearing is a sense. Listening is a skill. Okay? And the intelligence, the way you react or respond to something, what you hear, is your performance. So you hear something, you respond to something, is your performance. Now, the hearing and listening are very important for performance.
Yes.
Right. Now, are very important for performance. Now, the point is your hearing and your listening is much better when you hear with 2 ears compared to 1 ear. So which means when you hear with 2 ears, your performance is much better than hearing with 1 ear. Okay. Now you can ask me, what do you mean exactly by performance? Okay, I'll give you simple examples of that. Now, I am talking to you. Okay, we are connected through this electronic media, Zoom media.
Zoom meeting, whatever. Yeah.
Now I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you. Okay, this is perfectly fine. I'm sitting in a very quiet room of mine, and this room is relatively very quiet where I'm sitting. No noises. It's a Sunday evening, not many people around. So this is perfectly fine. Imagine I'm doing the same Zoom call with all of you, where a lot of people are walking around, there's a lot of noise, somebody's taking a spoon, glass, and all those things. What happens? You know, my whole body language will change. I will not be sitting like how I'm sitting now. I'll be sitting like this. Yes, tell me. Correct.
True. Yeah.
So, because I wanted to hear better, the quality is better. Now, the advantage of having 2 ears is when you have 2 ears, that will help you to understand speech even in a noisy environment. Now, the question is, how does that help you to understand speech in noisy environment? Is because imagine there is a noise cancellation system within your head, within your body, within your auditory system. Your auditory system has an automatic noise cancellation system. Rather, you can call it as a selective hearing. You can hear only what you want to hear. Yeah, that's called selective hearing. So most of the time, Karthik does with his wife. You know? So he only listen or hear what he wants to hear from your wife. Correct, Karthik?
True, sir. I do that.
So this is called selective hearing. Now, how does that work in the body? Is now the selective hearing is it takes information from both sides. Okay. And your mind knows what it wants to listen to, whether it wants to listen to this music or it wants to listen to somebody sitting and chatting with somebody else sitting next to you. So if your mind decides that, oh, I want to focus on the music, you see, involuntarily, automatically, the music sound will sound little higher. You will perceive it higher compared to the people chatting next to you. This is quite normal for all of us. We may not notice it because we always take this advantage so granted because we really don't really value that. But for people like Karthik, where they don't have, or Roshni, for anybody who's using an implant where they don't have a normal hearing, this mechanism is impaired. Okay, because of this impairment, they face a lot of problem in understanding sound and noise and understanding music. Okay. Now, to even for normal people, that is when I mean normal, even for people those who have normal hearing, that's what I mean for people. For normal hearing people, suddenly if somebody loses hearing on one side, he hears only with one ear, he will still have this problem. He will have three major problems. The problem number one, he will have difficulty in understanding speech and noise. He will have difficulty in appreciating the quality of music. He will have difficulty in understanding speech in a group conversation where multiple people are speaking. Fourth, and the most important, is they will have difficulty in understanding or locating the source of the sound, direction of the sound. Right? These are the four major problems they face when they hear only with one ear, even people with normal hearing. Okay. The same problem will persist for people with implant on one side. When they are bilaterally profound loss and they have implant on one side, the same problem they will face. So this is the problem that is more related to the processing in your auditory system in the brain. So 2 years is definitely better than one, not because how much of sound you hear. It is the quality of the perception of the sound in a different environment. That is why 2 years. Okay. Now, fortunately, I always tell wherever I go for these meetings, I always tell the most fortunate people are cochlear implantees, because when you put a cochlear implant, your hearing is permanent. Even if there is a bomb blast, nothing will happen to your ear. You will still hear very well, no problem. Okay. The second biggest advantage of using a cochlear implant is if you don't want to hear somebody or listen to somebody, you can just switch it off or just change a program, right? Which is very
I do.
I do it also.
okay. And the third important thing, that I always refer to is, like, the cochlear implantees have, especially the children, after cochlear implant, we train them so much in listening, okay, to improve their listening skill. When they go to school, their listening is much better than the so-called normal hearing children, right? And you see, most of the cochlear implantees, in my experience, are very good scholastic performers. They perform very well in the school, right? Now, simply because of the training that they undergo. Now, imagine if you put two implants and you train the same level, you see the amount of performance they will achieve. Okay, so these are the biggest advantages of cochlear implant. Listening skills will improve. But of course, we can also improve the listening skills in hearing, normal hearing children, but the listening skills are not paid much attention because they have normal hearing. Right? So if you ask me, these are the three of the five important reasons why you need to have bilateral hearing on both sides. Yes, Roshni.
Oh, well,
Thank
that's
you,
it.
sir.
I
Actually, I
think
was
you've answered,
thinking. Yeah,
you answered
good.
most
Actually,
of
I was
our
like thinking it's a
questions.
very. Sorry.
Sorry, Karthik, you were saying?
No. Actually, the point that I mentioned is very thinking, sir, because even I was thinking whether I should go for a bilateral. This thought was there in my mind, but you just mentioned it's basically the environment that makes the difference, correct? Because as I just mentioned, if it's going to be, you mentioned 2-3 points, like the environment, I mean, music is one of the other points, and loud gatherings. But if all these three, if not too, if I don't need all this, assuming that if I'm able to still manage with unilateral, then there is actually no difference in terms of how I speak or how I hear in the normal circumstance, right? Right, sir? In a normal conversation, a unilateral implantee can very well manage everything.
Yeah, the unilateral implantee can manage very well in a very quiet environment. Except for these 5 situations, what I've explained, there will not be much problem in
Yes.
using implant on one side. But understand the most important thing. We are only looking at these 5 important things. But what the 5 important things, what bilateral implant does in the brain to achieve these 5 things is very important. Never forget, when you put implant on both sides, your brain gets information from both sides. Both the lobes of your brain is very active. That is the rich, that is the wealth. Developing and enriching the brain is the wealth. And that is the absolute performance at the end of the day. Okay. Now,
So,
Karthik, you are using implant on one side. Okay. And you are able to achieve things. Good. But the effort that you put to achieve so many things with one implant on one side, okay, the efforts will only be 10% or 15% when you get implant on both sides. You only need to put 15 to 20% effort to achieve the same quality what you've achieved with 1 year. So you put 100% to achieve something. You will achieve the same 100%, not with that 100% effort. You with just 25% of the effort, you will still able to achieve that. That is what I'm trying to achieve. But in spite of achieving all those things, these are the 5 things that you will always miss with one side implant. But next
okay, sir. It just makes life easier. That's all, right?
exactly. But it makes the
It's like,
brain also better. Now the question is, I'm not blaming anybody for not doing bilateral. No, because at the end of the day in our country, it's a financial decision, right? Somebody can
yeah,
easily,
of course.
you go and get 2 implants. Why you did 1 implant? It's very expensive. We should also consider the patient, because if somebody gets 2 implants, if they can't maintain 2 implants, what is the point? The financial implications are very important we are looking at, right? So considering all those things, my submission to you is, if you have the opportunity to go for bilateral implant, please go. Don't, and go for simultaneous at the same time. Don't think, okay, I will first try this year and see how it is working, then I will go for the second year. See, you are not in a position, or nor the science or the experience is not in a position where you have to try and see how it works, because it is all experimented. We have been using for several years. It is working well. My thing is, if you have the money, just go for 2 implants at the same time. That's the first choice if required. The second thing is, like, you have only limited amount of money, that you don't have so much of money. My advice is, even if you want to, if you can only afford the basic implant for both years, go ahead. My advice is, rather spending 15 lakhs or 16 lakhs on 1 year, spend 13 lakhs or 14 lakhs with a basic implant, or a 5 or 6 lakh device for both sides. Right? That's my advice. The amount of benefit that you will get with that 5 lakh implant on both sides will be 80% more than what you can achieve with the 15 lakh implant on both sides.
Perfect. Makes sense.
So never go for the most expensive implant unless you have the money to do it for both sides. My advice is, go for 2 years. See,
2 years, right?
let me sum it up. That is, there are 3 major reasons which contribute for 99% of the outcome. Or I would say at least 97% of the outcome. The first is age, how early you do an implant. Number 2 is how much of training and that you give after the implant. The third, whether you implant one side or 2 sides, unilateral or bilateral. This will constitute bilateral. This will constitute 97% of the outcome. Remaining 2%, 3% is what the other factors, including the brand. Irrespective of whichever brand you take, whether you take Medal or Advanced Bionic or a Cochlear or whatever, this philosophy is constant. It will not change.
Thank you, sir. Roshni, I think you should probably make this point known to the WhatsApp group communities as well. Sir mentioned 3 points, which are absolutely very much useful information. As I just mentioned, how early we do, and the training content, how long we are giving training, basically, And third one is you 1 year or 2 years. These 3 points are very, very important. Probably we should, share this key point in other WhatsApp groups that we have. I think so. Thank you, sir. It's a very good point. Thank you so much for this. Yeah. Over to you, Roshni.
Thank you. Sir, for the adults, what is the age limit for cochlear implants, sir? Is there any?
Absolutely, there is no age limit for implanting. There is an age limit. I would rather putting as an age limit, Roshni, I would classify as two things. One is the onset of the hearing loss. So since when they have hearing loss? If the hearing loss is from birth, then of course there is a limitation with respect to the outcome. Outcome in the sense the quality of hearing that they're going to get after the implant, and this the quality of speech perception production after the implant. Okay. The second important thing is the health. Rather than the age, health is important. If somebody has acquired hearing loss, that is they are normal since birth at the age of 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, they lost hearing, whether they can go for implant? Yes, they can go for implant, provided they are healthy enough to undergo the surgery. That is the most important thing. So in my opinion, you can implant people with any age, that's no problem. But two factors you have to consider. The factor number one is onset of the hearing loss. So based on that, you can counsel the patient or give a realistic expectation to the patient, what is the benefit that they can expect when you do an implant at this point of time. Okay. And the second thing is, we should also tell them the amount of the training that they need to undergo after that. So the success and the failure depends upon what your expectations are. Right. Now, I see, if I wanted to score 70 marks and I scored 75 marks, okay, I'm very happy. I'm satisfied. Right. But Karthik wanted to score 99 mark. He scored 98 mark. He's not happy. So the satisfaction depends on your expectation level. But my point is, your expectation has to be realistic. You cannot have unrealistic expectation. So I have attended questions only for 70 marks, but I'm expecting 98 marks. That is unrealistic. You will not get it. Right. So the realistic expectations are important. And the realistic expectation varies depending on the age, etiology, the cause of hearing loss, the onset of the hearing loss. These three important factors.
Thank you, Ranjith sir, and thank you, Karthik, for your time. It was a very interesting session today that we had, and mostly we did good interaction. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Roshni.
Karthik. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Roshni.
Thank you for being.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, Karthik. See you. Good luck.
Thank you, Roshni.
You too, sir.